gimana sih?
I would say we live a good life by many things. I mean, food, water, sunlight keep us alive, which is all good for us. I would say you have to keep your mind, body and heart in good shape and healthy, and to be surrounded by people who have a positive impact on you. You'll make a lot of happy memories. I think to be alive is scary. There's one of me that's ever going to exist, which is exciting because I am who I am and I'm here experiencing, I'm here feeling, I'm here exploring and developing, which hopefully I can do the same for the next generation and inspire. But overall, to be alive and kicking is great, but it's scary. Growing up, you experience so many things that give you a great memory. And if I had to look back so far at my life, I would not be able to pick. But I think one of the happiest memories is game nights with my friends. You cherish the moment, you laugh about it for days after, and what's better than laughter? I think being raised by my parents to be grounded with rules and how to behave and to keep me level-headed. What makes you feel alive? Firstly, when there's like an adrenaline rush, like being on a roller coaster or where scary things jump out at you. And secondly, apart from, your heart and your mind and your body keeping you alive, I think experiencing things that you've never done before.
I want you all to imagine that you have a ball, right? Balls have mass. The larger the ball, the larger the mass. The smaller the ball, the smaller the mass. Now, there's this thing called flat space. Imagine it's a bit like a net. And if you're going to put your ball into the net, it's going to walk around it naturally, right? The larger the mass, the more the walk. Now say you've got a particle that's really small and it's travelling very slowly and it wants to get to point B. It probably won't make it because it'll end up in the wall. Mass will drag space. Space also drags mass. Now, when you get a large amount of mass in a relatively small area, you get a black hole. A black hole's warp is so large that not even light will be able to escape it. The centre point of a black hole is called a singularity.
That's actually quite fascinating. I've never thought of the mass being the thing that creates the warp. I always thought that was more of an external thing. Well, anyway, I've been researching about knots. So what is a knot? So you get a piece of string, you tie it together, you get two ends of the string, you tie it together, and that is the knot. But in maths, we have knots, and there are 4 very basic knots in maths. But these are very special knots. We can't see them, and we can't touch them, but we've got to work out how to get back into that piece of string. The only problem is, you can't do that in maths, because they are what are called unknots. An unknot is a closed loop, meaning it doesn't have a beginning or an end. So I'll just go over it again. So a knot is when you get 2 ends of the string and you tie it together, and that is the knot. An unknot is a closed loop, meaning it doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's kind of like an Ouroboros, really. But what we've got to do as mathematicians is we have to work out whether it's an actual knot or a trivial knot. A trivial knot is where we can use a series of instructions to manipulate and maneuver the string to get it back into that closed loop. Or if it's an actual knot. An actual knot is no matter how hard we try, this is something that we can't untangle.
That's really interesting that you brought up trivial things. One of the things I've been looking into recently is conspiracy theories, in particular, the theory of the tree of life. I'll explain it to you. So this thing called the tree of life, right? It's been around for far longer than humans have. And when a child is born, it is given a soul from the tree of life. Souls have mass. The larger the soul, the larger the mass. The smaller the soul, the smaller the mass. Now imagine the tree is a net, right? If you're going to put the soul into the tree, then naturally it's going to walk around it, right? And if you've got a person that wants to get from point A to point B, but they're moving relatively slowly, no, they probably won't get there because they have no soul. The centre of the soul is called a singularity.
That's actually fascinating, looking into like the whole pseudo-science. I really enjoyed that, because it makes you know that the Earth is completely flat. And according to Samuel Rowbotham, based on the Bedford Level experiment, the Earth is a completely flat disk surrounded by a wall of ice, the very centre of the disk being the North Pole. So there are two things that remain true within this community. The Earth is completely flat, and there is no such thing as out of space. No one has ever travelled there. But how come we don't fall off the edge, I hear you ask? Well, according to science, the Pac-Man effect takes place. Like similar to the game Pac-Man, when Pac-Man travels from one edge of the screen to the other, as if a person was to travel from one edge of the disc to the other, it would teleport over to the other side. But what if there was a knot involved? What if the knot was involved at the interstitial point in which the centre of the North Pole was? How would we begin to imagine how Pac-Man would teleport across that? And how would we begin to measure and untangle the knot if that was involved in a singularity?
But of course, none of this is true. So there's
According
this
to
thing
Samuel
called the
Rowbotham,
tree of
based on the
life,
Bedford
right?
Level experiment,
And the tree of
Earth
life
is a
has been around
completely flat
far
disk
longer than humans
surrounded
have.
by a wall
And
of
basically,
ice.
when a human is
But
born,
two
it
things
is given a
remain true
soul.
within this community.
Souls
The
have
Earth
mass.
is completely
The larger the
flat.
soul, the larger the mass. The smaller
And
the
two,
soul, the smaller
there's
the
no
mass.
such thing as out of space.
Now there's
No
this
one
thing,
has
right?
ever
Imagine it's a
travelled
bit like a
there.
net.
But how can
Put
we
the
fall
tree
off
in
the
that,
edge? I
right? And if
think
we're going
you
to put a
ask?
soul
Well,
into the
what
tree,
happens
naturally it's going to
when
walk
you get
around
to the
it,
edge of the
right?
disc, the Pac-Man effect
Now say
takes
you've got
place.
someone
Now
who
what
wants
this
to move
is
from point A
when
to
Pac-Man
point B, but
travels
they're
from one
moving
edge of the
incredibly
screen to the other,
slowly.
Pac-Man
No, they
teleports
probably
over
won't
to
get
the
there
other
because they
side.
don't
Well,
have a
what's
soul.
happened that interstitial point in which the centre of the
soul
Earth? What's
is
that
called a
North Pole?
singularity.
And then what happened? How do we measure and untangle this knot?